This is the Bat Flip Podcast. Now here's your host, Damien, David, and Matt. Alrighty, welcome in everyone to a episode of the Bat Flip Podcast, our first official podcast of 2025. So if you haven't checked out our season preview, Happy New Year, everybody. Nice intro that we had there. If you're listening first podcast, it's a lot of changes coming. So this one is going to be a jam-packed episode, as we haven't done an episode since December 16th was our last one. So boy, oh boy, is there a lot of moves. So get your popcorn ready, lock in, because we are going to be on a roll here with a bunch of moves. So real quick, before we get to those, David, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. We had a lovely New Year celebration with my parents. Came up to Illinois, so that was super cool. And yeah, I mean, we got to go to the city and had some delicious Italian food, as one does in Chicago. Yeah, it was awesome. I had a great little New Year, great little holiday. How about you, Matt?
Yeah, mine was good. We had Italian food too for Christmas, but that's because my family's Italian. So, yeah, that was good. Had a good holiday. There's been a lot of people sick around here, so I know all the winter illnesses have been going around. I know a bunch of people have had the flu, and so I hope everyone out there as well. It kind of impacted my Christmas. I didn't have it, but a lot of people around me did. So that wasn't fun. But everything else has been good. We've been having our started our season previews. Go check those out if you haven't already. We've done 2 teams so far. Probably not the 2 teams that you would really want to hear about this year, but we're doing one for every team. So if you're a White Sox fan for some reason, or if you're a Rockies fan for some reason, then go check those out. Even if you're not a fan of one of those teams, go check them out. So we've put in a lot of work on them. So, but yeah, everything's been great. Excited to talk some baseball tonight. And Damien, how was your holidays?
It was pretty good. And by the way, we're not bashing you for being a fan of those teams. We're just sorry that you're a fan of those teams because you guys deserve better.
You do deserve better.
Absolutely.
But my holiday was good. Other than like New Year's Eve, we worked like half day at work. And I decided when I got back into the warehouse that when the power went out to continue walking, and I completely tripped over a pallet. Yeah, so that was not fun from that point, but it was funny, but it wasn't fun. But yeah, I just hung out and didn't really do much. I don't do anything for New Year's because people are stupid nowadays. So I just stay home with my dog and say, hey, things are well there. So
Sounds good.
but boy, am I excited for this episode because there's a lot of Dodger moves to talk about, but in general, just as a baseball fan, usually you think the holiday break is going to be kind of quiet. And this year, the general managers decided to be anything but, which is really exciting. So we're going to start and go in chronological order here. So our first move is going to be December 17th all the way up to current day. So we'll start here. This one's probably going to be David's biggest reaction. And that is that the Chicago Cubs, after acquiring Kyle Tucker, have now traded Cody Bellinger to the New York Yankees for relief pitcher Cody Poteet and cash considerations.
The cash is $5 million each of the next 2 years that the Cubs are going to retain, and then the rest of Cody Bellinger's contract will go to the Yankees. That covers his buyout should he elect to opt out next season. So he's got an opt. He's getting paid like $27 million a year for the next 2 years for the Yankees. It's this is a cash clearing move, and the Cubs have not reinvested that cash yet. We talked about it's December 17th or that this move was made. It is now January 6th. We're almost at a month, and the Cubs have effectively done nothing since. That's pretty disappointing, but there's some very good reason for that. We'll touch on that later, I'm sure, as we roll through all these moves. But, I think as the market rolls, it's yet to be determined whether this move will help the Cubs. As for the Yankees, this is a great move. Get a great outfielder, a guy you can play center field and move Aaron Judge out of the center field slot. He's going to hit really well in Yankee Stadium, I think. The big worry with Cody Bellinger has been this exit velocity thing, and it's trended downward for him, but it's coming with plus contact. So his contact is going up at the same time as exit velocity is going down. But in Yankee Stadium, he had a pop fly to right field, and it's a home run. So this is great for Cody Bellinger. I think the power will return. You'll probably see a season where the ex-WOBA does not match the WOBA, but I think the WOBA will still be very good. I think Cody Bellinger is going to have a really good season this year in Yankee Stadium, and for having cleared this deal for, just as a salary clearance deal for the Cubs, it's going to kind of look bad, especially as Cody performs well, and who knows what Cody Poteet is. So that's all I got on this.
Yeah, I'll be very, very brief because David's the expert on the Cubs. But yeah, Bellinger, advanced numbers haven't been great. I think that's probably why the Cubs felt like they probably could move him. They got to clear the salary on his contract, which, there's a lot of downside to it because of the opt-out. So that could be helpful for them, especially if they try to re-sign Kyle Tucker next year. You would hope that they would add somebody for this year. They still need a lot of bullpen help, in my opinion. Probably more help in their lineup too. But yeah, we'll see. Cody Poteet, I guess he's been a big league reliever some, so you never know when a big league reliever might break out. And but yeah, definitely interesting, and definitely helps the Yankees. They really needed some more contact in their lineup, a little bit more consistency.
So the next move that we had happen was the Philadelphia Phillies signing Max Kepler to a 1-year, $10 million deal. Sounds like the plan is probably to play him in left field moving forward. But Matt, what do you think about Kepler to the Phillies?
Yeah, I mean, Kepler's been a very solid player for a long time. He had a little bit of a down year this year, but he's a really good defender in a corner outfield spot. He's always been roughly a league average hitter, and he's had a few years where he was a pretty good hitter. Like in 2023, in 130 games, he had a 3 WAR, put up 123 WRC plus. That's really good numbers for a guy who's a plus defender in the corner. So it could work out for them. The one thing about him is that, and this is the interesting part of the fit with the Phillies, he's really a platoon guy. I mean, he plays pretty much, he's pretty bad against left-handed pitching. And the Phillies, the way that their depth chart lines up, they've got him and Brandon Marsh both in there in the outfield right now. And they don't really have another guy and to go along with Schwarber, who's not really an outfielder anymore. He's DH, but they got Castellanos, but they don't really have a platoon option for Kepler. I mean, maybe Weston Wilson, but then again, if you have him, platooning and playing for Kepler when you're facing a left-handed pitcher, then you've got to face Brandon Marsh against a left-handed pitcher. So definitely kind of an interesting fit since you already had a Brandon Marsh who's a similar type of player to Max Kepler. But yeah, I mean, the Phillies adding a little bit here, a guy who's got some upside, it can't hurt for sure.
Yeah. I got nothing on Max Kepler. Matt hit it all.
Good job. All right. So a couple other moves we're just going to mention, but we'll move on to other ones. Gio Urshela went to the A's on a major league contract, and then Patrick Sandoval signed a 2-year, $18.25 million deal with the Boston Red Sox. He's coming off Tommy John surgery. He's not going to pitch this year. It's a bounce back candidate for next year. Anyways, so let's jump to the next trade that we had happen, which was the New York Yankees traded catcher Jose Trevino to the Cincinnati Reds for right-handed relief pitcher Fernando Cruz and catcher Alex Jackson. David, you were pretty vocal in our chat when this one happened. So what do you think about this one?
Yeah, I actually have a big opinion on this one, and it's that the Yankees made out like bandits in this trade. Fernando Cruz is 34 years old, so running into his age 35 season, it's not a guy you're expecting to be good for a long time. But the Yankees don't need long-term relief help. It's the Yankees. They can extract the most value out of a Fernando Cruz, where this upcoming year is probably going to be his best year. A lot of whiffs, a lot of walks, right? This is a guy who's a little bit wild, but he's very nasty. And to be able to clear that for Jose Trevino, who's effectively at this point a glove first backup to Tyler Stevenson, the Yankees give up nothing, get a guy that they can slot in the Clay Holmes role, and leave Luke Weaver at closer and just kind of roll into next season with the bullpen kind of completely intact, maybe even with some upside, because I think Clay Holmes had some games where he was just really not effective, and I think you're trading a little bit of that contact that Holmes was getting with that sinker for whiff that Fernando Cruz has. And this also does give Austin Wells, I think, full reign on that job in New York. He performed really well last year as a Rookie of the Year candidate, and for the Yankees, I mean, this is just a great move. We've seen the Reds make some really weird trades. We're going to talk about them again later. I don't know what the Reds are doing this offseason, guys.
Yeah. Just one more comment. They brought in Alex Jackson. It's gonna be interesting to see if he makes the roster. He's a guy that has had some form of upside, but he's just really been bad at the big league level. Hasn't ever stuck. So we'll see if he ends up being anything. And you mentioned Cruz. He has a really, really, really good expected numbers from last year. So it'll be interesting to see if he can translate that into a really good ERA this year.
Yeah. All right, so let's go to the same day, which was December 20th. We'll talk about the Houston Astros signing first baseman Christian Walker to a 3-year, $60 million deal. I think this is one that we all kind of thought made a ton of sense. I don't think any of us actually predicted him there, but I think we might have mentioned like, hey, this could be a fit here. Everything the Astros would have wanted and needed here. But Matt, what do you think about Walker going to the Astros?
Well, I thought this was a great trade or a great signing for the Astros. I'm a big Christian Walker fan. He's an elite defensive first baseman, which is kind of something you don't typically think of when you're looking for a first baseman. But it definitely helps. And the guy can really hit. I mean, he's put up about a 120 WRC plus the last 3 years. He's put up 4 WAR twice this year. He dealt with a little bit of injuries, but if he was on the 160 game pace, he would have put up around 4 WAR. He's a very solid player, a huge upgrade for the Astros, who really, Jose Abreu was their guy coming into last year, and he was a disaster for them, and that contract just did not work out. So Christian Walker's a great player, definitely a big help for the Astros. The one thing this does do that is very interesting for Houston is that this took them out of Alex Bregman, because they just traded for Isaac Paredes in the Tucker trade, and now he's for sure going to play third. So Bregman doesn't have a spot there anymore, and I think we kind of expected them to move on. But when they traded Tucker, we were kind of thinking, well, maybe they're saving a little bit of money so they can bring Bregman back. But obviously now, that they don't have a spot for him. They don't really need him anymore. So that's definitely a big part of this move here. So, but yeah, I think it helps the Astros. I mean, this is a team that's going to still be in their competitive window this year. It's kind of closing, but they really needed to fill some holes on this roster that really took a downturn last year. So, we'll see if they're able to. We'll see if Christian Walker is able to keep it up. He is going to be 34 this year, so he could start to fall off some. But I definitely liked this signing.
Yeah, so Christian Walker, my thing with him is that he's been as good as Pete Alonso basically over the last 3 years, and I was always kind of comparing their free agent, track here, and it looks like right now Pete Alonso is not going to get the same deal that Christian Walker is, which I think is really interesting, because I've kind of held this like I feel like Christian Walker's a better player right now. Pete just has too much whiff. He just doesn't get to a high enough on base percentage to warrant the poor defense at first base and stuff. Whereas Christian Walker is a Gold Glove elite defensive first baseman that is going to really help. I think Jose Altuve, who is trended downward defensively lately, like he's going to help Isaac Paredes, who in his short time with the Cubs, he had some throwing issues. Like you get that solidified elite defensive first baseman over there in Christian Walker. And I think that kind of glues that infield together, and it makes the Astros right back to kind of where they were as a division co-favorite. But yeah. I mean, that's all it is here.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that they had kind of already started to pivot off of Alex Bregman at that point, because also before the Christian Walker signing, we had the I guess announcement, or it was put out there on social media that they had a trade worked out for Nolan Arenado, and he declined to waive his no trade clause to go there until later in the offseason. And it was only like a day later, because I think that was on a Thursday. I think on Friday they had agreed and signed Christian Walker. So they are kind of making that pivot, but it is also interesting. That's another Nolan Arenado trade destination that's now gone as well, as we still await that to happen. But the next deal is talking about first baseman here. We have the New York Yankees signing Paul Goldschmidt to a 1-year deal for $12.5 million. Matt, what do you think about Goldie going to the Yankees?
I thought it was interesting. I mean, Goldie's going to be 37 years old this year, so he's definitely up there. He really fell off statistically this year. Honestly, since his 2022 season, he had a drastic fall off to 2023, and then he kind of doubled that fall off to 2024. He was a league average hitter this year, and the defense just isn't really there for him anymore. So this is somebody who I think, it's definitely more of this veteran presence. It's kind of a similar type of guy that they had in Anthony Rizzo last year, honestly, where you've got this veteran who's been on good teams, who's played for a long time, knows how to do it. He still shows some flashes occasionally. The expected numbers last year were a little bit better than his actual numbers, which is interesting. So maybe there is a tiny bit left in the tank, at least more than he showed last year. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see what happens with Goldie. And I mean, the Yankees needed to add a first baseman because I mean that's been a black hole for them for a long time at this point. So adding a first baseman was important, and they get it done with Goldie. I do think they might have paid a little bit too much for him, but it's a 1-year deal, so it's not that big of a deal to me.
Yeah, guys who are, on that fringe of Hall of Fame caliber player are going to get paid a little bit more, I think, just on the
exactly.
1-year deals. You're going to see Scherzer and Verlander, I think, end up with a pretty sizable chunk here at the end of the offseason. But yeah, I mean, Goldschmidt to the Yankees is a slam dunk. It's a 1-year deal. It's nothing major, like Matt said, but I really like the fit because Goldschmidt, resetting into a lineup where he's not one of the primary focus players is going to, I think, really help him. And like Matt said, right, the expected numbers weren't that bad. He had the same ex-WOBA from 2022 to 2023. Only last year did it fall off a little bit. And you kind of wonder if some of that was the Cardinals culture kind of collapsing a little bit. So I feel pretty comfortable in declaring that maybe Goldie bounces back a little bit, has a little bit better season, and Yankees fans are quite happy that he's playing in the Bronx.
Yeah, and even with Goldie's bad start last year, if you look at his second half, he had about he had a 799 OPS and a 120 WRC plus. Like
that's about what I'm expecting.
Yeah, I think he just had that slow start, and it really made it look a lot worse on the season long numbers there. But towards the end of the season, he was a very good version of Paul Goldschmidt again, and going to play in Yankee Stadium is also going to help big time there. So. All right, so the next deal that we had happen is it's kind of a 2-for-1 combined deal here. It is the Cleveland Guardians trading first baseman Josh Naylor to the Arizona Diamondbacks. They got Slade Ciccone, and I think it was a competitive balance B pick.
Yep.
In that, and then the Guardians then turned around and signed Carlos Santana to a 1-year, $12 million contract. David, I know we had a little bit of back and forth on this one. So what are your overall thoughts on both moves in a vacuum?
Yeah, we disagree on this mightily. And I think that's cool because, we do a lot of agreeing on this. And our buddy Adam says, you guys need to yell at each other a little more. And this was one I was trying to yell at Damian. Look, I think the world of Josh Naylor, and maybe that's a mistake, but it bring me a guy who has a ton of energy and is just 27 going on 28 years old every single time. I think this is a massive win for the Diamondbacks in all. You get to replace Christian Walker, who we just talked the world of, with Josh Naylor, who is a young first baseman just coming off a 30 home run season, in a season where the batting average on balls in play was 40 points lower than his career total, right? It's 246 versus a 282 career. I feel like Josh Naylor is, he's a guy who hits the ball really hard. He's one of the guys who gets those good expected numbers, but he's also able to hit the ball over the fence. And in Cleveland, that was happening a little bit better, but Arizona is playing like Coors Light, pun intended, right now. The Diamondbacks had one of the best park factors in all of baseball last year. And I'm guessing they messed with the humidors again over there. But Arizona is a good place to hit right now. The Diamondbacks are the best offense in baseball, and they take Christian Walker out of that offense and replace it with Josh Naylor, who's a younger guy with a little more energy. And then, I speak about the younger guy, right? The Guardians replaced him with an older guy in Carlos Santana. And Carlos Santana has been very, very capable and very, very reliable to be a league average bat and kind of a lefty killer over his career. But I would much rather have the 28-year-old than I would the 38-year-old. It just, in terms of team building, that's my preferred stance here. And, I don't think Slade Ciccone is much of anything at this point. The Guardians, of course, might figure him out, but it's a project and a throw into the comp pick. And for Naylor to only go for that feels very shocking to me because I really thought Josh Naylor is a big impact bat that could have been had all throughout this offseason, and it's the Diamondbacks who are the ones who get him.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought Naylor was he was really good last year, and it probably was better than his metrics showed. You know, he had his expected WOBA was slightly higher than his WOBA, but you know, that 246 BABIP is definitely something to look at. You know, with him, and the thing I like the most about him is that he improved his walk rate a pretty good substantial amount last year. So he got a lot more patient. He did strike out a little bit more too, but definitely a guy who's still growing a little bit. The only thing with this move is that, you know, Naylor is definitely a guy that has DH risk in the future. So that's going to be interesting. And then Carlos Santana, I mean, he put up a really good season in 2024. He was actually pretty substantially better than Naylor by WAR. He had a 3 WAR. He was basically roughly the exact same hitter. You know, 114 WRC plus to 118. So, I mean, if they repeat their performance from this past year, then the Guardians win this by getting Carlos Santana on a competitive team. They also like him there. He's a lifelong Indian Guardian. You know, until the last couple of years. So that's definitely something to kind of look out for too. And then Chichoni is a guy that you never want to give the Guardians guys like this. It's just one of those things that they do. They figure these types of guys out. I mean, he's a stuff over performance type of guy who has some good stuff, but he's just never really put it together. And, you know, it's definitely something to look out for because the Guardians always figure these types out. So that'll be interesting to see what they do with him.
Yeah, and that's where I disagree with David on this, is because both of these guys are on a 1-year deal. Naylor is supposed to be a free agent after this next season anyways, right? So in a vacuum, you look at the Guardians already have Kyle Manzardo waiting in the wings to be their first baseman of the future. Yep. So both of those guys, if you look at it, are going to be 1-year deals only, and they're going to be relatively around the same cost because Naylor made $6.5-7 million in 6.5 in ARB in 2024. You give him a little bit of a raise, he's probably going to be close somewhere in the 10 million-ish range. So Carlos Santana cost you about $2.5 million more or $2 million more from Naylor. He's a lot better defensively at first base for you. They're around the same offensive production. I even suspect that Cleveland's offensive or ballpark really turned more offensive this year. I bet Carlos Santana probably gets even a little bit more offensive value there in Cleveland. He's been there before. He's a major leader for that team. He was one of the fan favorites, clubhouse favorites there as well. So I don't think you're losing much production between one or the other in this season. And that's really what it comes down to, is because they're going to be a free agent anyways. The Guardians didn't need Naylor past this year. They weren't going to pay him past this year regardless anyways. And they get a guy in Ciccone who I really like. Like, I really think that the Guardians can figure him out and get something really good here as a starter. I think he has the ceiling to be like a 2-3 starter even. Like, that's how much I really believe in what he's able to do in his stuff. That's why I think it's not really a bad deal in the vacuum, because both of them are on 1-year deals. I think Santana's better and probably gets an offensive uptick going to that ballpark, a lot better defensively. They both leave after this year. Cleveland gets a pitcher who I think can be a 2-3 eventually for them and a draft pick. So that's where I think Naylor's a better player long term. I just think for this year it makes more sense.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. So
yeah.
All right, so we're gonna continue on this first baseman market because we've had a lot of stuff happen here. But the next one is the Washington Nationals acquired first baseman Nathaniel Lowe from the Texas Rangers for left-handed relief pitcher Robert Garcia. So, Matt, what do you think of this move?
This was an interesting one. I mean, you kind of look at Nate Lowe's profile as being like lefty Christian Walker. Very good defensive first baseman, puts up around a 120 WRC plus. 2022 was an outlier season where he was like unbelievable at the plate, but he was awful defensively. So that was interesting. But you know, he's a very good player. He did battle injury a little bit this past year. Definitely more of a contact and own base type of first baseman. He's not really a super high power guy. His career high is 27 homers, which was in 2022. But other than that, he's never broken 20 in a season. So definitely an interesting get for the Nationals, who, it's interesting that they went and made this move to get a first baseman that I think he's got 2 years left on
I
his.
think two. I think 2 years left.
Yeah, he's a 2027 free agent.
3 years
So
left.
yeah, well, I think it's for the 2027 season. So he's got 25 and 26 is what he's got left under control. But definitely interesting, and I'm interested that the Rangers moved on from him. Because what they did was we'll talk about a guy they signed here in a little bit, but they brought in Jake Berger in the early
Mhm.
offseason from Miami, and you kind of look at Jake Berger as thinking this guy is going to be their DH, right? And but then they signed Joc Pederson, who's going to be their DH. So Jake Berger is going to play first base for them, and it's kind of a weird trade there to get bringing Jake Berger over Nathaniel Lowe. And then Robert Garcia, he's an interesting reliever. Had really good advanced numbers last year. ERA was a 4.22, but I mean, all the other numbers that were very good. So this is somebody who will probably figure it out to a certain level with the Rangers, and they've done a pretty good job of piecing together their bullpen with guys who aren't quite as talented in that area. So definitely, still getting something back there if you're the Rangers. But I think Nate Lowe is probably that's a big upgrade for the Nationals. It's going to help them a lot.
Yeah, I mean, Lowe is. Yeah, Adam said it. I mean, Nate Lowe is a good player, and the contact first baseman is kind of going the way of the dodo a little bit. He's kind of he's not as popular because of that, but he was on a championship team, right? He's got that pedigree. The Nats kind of need a veteran leader like that, and being able to do that for just Robert Garcia, who is a good reliever, I think he'll fit in nicely in the back end of this Rangers bullpen. Who they added somebody else today there as well. Rangers have been really active. Honestly, this does say that they've got a lot of faith in Jake Berger, I think, and Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford. That triumvirate of young players that is going to be hitting the ball there in Texas. And I think they, by bringing in Peterson later, this Texas lineup is going to be really exciting. I think they're going to hit a lot of home runs, trading off that Nate Lowe, who was kind of I don't want to call him the weak point in the lineup, but he was less scary than those other guys. Right. And now you're adding a guy like Jake Berger. You can't make a mistake to Jake Berger. He'll hit it out of the park. He does that 30 times a year. So, this feels like a good opportunity for Berger. Feels like a good opportunity for Lowe to try and go in there and be the steady presence in a lineup full of young bats. 3 wins all around here.
Yeah, I think Lowe's a good pickup for the Nats with that young team. I think Garcia, who he's 28, but he's still relatively young to the major leagues. He's very, very new. He showed electric stuff this year. I think he's going to fit really well. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a future like star closer in this league with how good his fastball is and stuff. So I love this move from both sides. And I think we kind of saw the writing on the wall when the Berger trade happened. Like we're like Berger's not going to play third base. Like they already have Josh Jung there. It was kind of the writing was there for Lowe, so I think they got a nice package or a nice deal from it, given that we kind of knew it was going to happen. So, all right, so let's jump over to the NL East and talk about another Phillies to Marlins trade because there hasn't been a high profile one of those before. So the Phillies acquire Jesus Luzardo from the Miami Marlins for shortstop prospect Starling Caba, outfielder Marion Boyd are the two guys going back to Miami there. David, so what do you think about the prospects going back? Because I know you liked one of them a little bit, and then you were a big. I thought you said Cabo was pretty good return for him.
Well,
but also you are also a big proponent of Luzardo potentially going to the Cubs at one point. So
yeah, Luzardo was that Cubs Luzardo rumor was pretty heavy at one point, and I think what happened, and we don't know exactly, but I think what happened is the Cubs got scared off by the medicals. Is what happened. I think whatever kind of prospect package they were going to send was going to be too much. Obviously the Marlins end up getting a top 100 prospect and Starlin Caba out of this. I would slot Caba below either one of the two guys that Bruce Levine mentioned from the Cubs, Owen Casey and James Triantos. Both those guys are on MLB Pipeline's top 100 as well. Caba's a defense first shortstop. That's useful, but he's not much of a hitter. And you really want, when you're moving a guy like Luzardo in a spot like the Marlins, when they have absolutely nothing, my theory was always they should try to pillage one of these various, well endowed farm systems, maybe Cubs, maybe Orioles, maybe Tigers, of several young hitters to try and grab some, 3 or 4 shots at getting a really good hitter. And this is not the kind of direction I was hoping the Marlins would take. They, not in the sense that they should have traded into the Cubs, but like they should have gone for, I think, quantity here. Quantity, but quantity. They should have tried to grab a bunch of lottery tickets, older guys, but lottery tickets, like guys who could help your team quickly, because this Marlins team is just so far away. It is really, really bad, and it's getting worse as they move Luzardo. Sandy Alcantara is the only player making over like $3 million next year for this team. Miserable group right now. And, I like Starlin Caba a little bit, but I just don't think this is a quality enough of a return to have, made this deal. But you can't risk Luzardo blowing his arm out again. Yep. Right. So you have to trade him because you're not going to pay him in 2 years. So I hate this. I really hate where the Marlins continue to put themselves. Love it for the Phillies, right? I think Luzardo is the perfect little, he's going to be their 5, I think, technically, in this rotation. The Phillies rotation is nasty. Zach Wheeler is the best pitcher in baseball, has been for several years now. And Nola's getting a bunch of money, right? Sanchez and Suarez have been great. Luzardo, he doesn't even have to be the guy from 2023. He can be last year's Jesus Luzardo and still be a good pitcher in this Phillies rotation. They have enough depth to sponge the injuries with Andrew Painter. From the Phillies perspective, this is a slam dunk. From the Marlins perspective, what are you doing?
Yeah, I disagree a little bit on this one. I think that, with the Marlins, I think they got probably what they could get. I think Luzardo's value is significantly been dropped by the injuries. I mean, this is somebody who he's broken 100 innings one time in his career. He's been around for 5 years now, 6 years now. So, this is he's always dealt with these little injury issues. Last year, his velocity dropped a lot. He was not very effective when he pitched, and his strikeout rate was way down last year. So I know that's probably injury related, but that's a concern with him, like, to start with. So I definitely think that Luzardo is somebody who has a lot of upside still, and I think that it's a good get for the Phillies because it is a guy who's got upside. Like, he could come back and be 2023 Luzardo, where he was mid 3s ERA, throwing 97, really high strikeout rate, could be a dominant pitcher on some occasions. But in 2024, not great. There's question marks about him long-term injury wise. And you look at those prospects. I mean, I think Starlin Caba is somebody who he's really, really young, and a lot of the people who evaluate these young prospects think that he could really break out at some point. They think he's got like elite hand-eye coordination, and that he could eventually become like a really good contact hitter to go along with some of the best defense in the minor leagues. So if he really develops that hit tool like he could, now he's never going to hit for power, but if he develops the hit tool like they think he could, then this could be a really valuable player for the Marlins, who, this could be that lottery ticket, because I just don't know that they were going to get 3, 4, 5 lottery tickets that had any real chance of hitting. I mean, I guess you never know, but that they got somebody who they really do believe in as a lottery ticket, and I think that's important for them. So definitely interesting. Amarian Boyd is also somebody who's not just a total throw in. I mean, he's a top 15 prospect for them. He's got elite speed. So just kind of another somewhat interesting guy in that deal. I don't think he's that big, but yeah, definitely interesting. Probably just based off reputation, he probably didn't get back quite as much as people would have thought, but it kind of makes sense when you kind of deep dive and think about like the issues with Luzardo in his career so far.
Yeah, probably would have got a bunch more if they would have just traded him last offseason, like they probably
should
have.
I mean, they for sure.
Yep.
But all right, so let's stay in the NL East and let's talk about another left-handed pitcher. And this time it was Sean Manaea returning to the Mets for a 3-year, $75 million deal. Matt, this is your division here, so you get to keep facing Manaea here. What do you think of the deal of him going back to the Mets?
Well, I mean, I think it's definitely a good deal for him. I think he's he's a solid pitcher. The price of pitching right now is extremely high, so I think the money makes sense on both sides. I think Manaea got probably as much as he could get, and the Mets know that they bring back somebody they're familiar with, and he succeeded for them last year, and they like him. So they brought back somebody they really like, and there's some things. I mean, I think he overperformed just a little bit last year. What his true level is, I think he's more of like a number 4 starter that has kind of, or number 3, number 4 starter that's around a 4 ERA is probably what he should be. Last year, a 3.47 ERA, which was really, really good. He overperformed his metrics just a little bit. He actually threw a career high in innings last year, which was interesting. 181 innings. If he can repeat that, this is going to be a very good deal for the Mets this year. They badly needed pitching, so they decided to bring back someone they're familiar with.
Yeah, I mean, Sean Manaea is, we talked about this when we went through our qualifying offer, free agent predictions type shows and stuff. And, it's like what Damian said and what I said on the TikTok about this move. It's the Mets are going with that familiarity. They're going with the bank that the changes he made mid-season are going to continue. And, they go ahead, they void the qualifying offer for this, which I think is substantial because, the Juan Soto deal and stuff. So the Mets are losing draft picks. This would have been a good way to gain one back. They're going to get one back from Severino going, but again, I just don't know. I feel like the Mets have not done enough in that rotation yet. And we're running out of options. Where do they turn here is the big question, because Manaea just gets a guy back that was there last year. So how do the Mets improve the rotation as they've already spent a record amount on Juan Soto?
Yeah, it's a fair question and something that we'll have to look for moving forward. But David mentioned this move a little bit earlier when we were talking about the Nathaniel Lowe deal, but that is Joc Pederson signing a 2-year, $37 million deal with the Texas Rangers. The deal does have an opt-out after the first season, but Joc's a big-time power left-handed hitting bat to go into that lineup. So, David, what do you think about it?
First of all, Brave legend, Dodger legend, Cub legend. Joc Pederson is the
holy podcast bingo card.
Yeah, the holy grail of the Bat Flip podcast right there is the Joc Pedersons of the world. But no, this guy, I mean, he's a great guy. He's a great clubhouse guy. Been on multiple World Series caliber teams. He's been on multiple World Series winning teams actually. But yeah, he's just a great hitter against right-handed pitching. He never sees the field against left-handed pitching. The Rangers have plenty of right-handed hitters, right? Wyatt Langford's right-handed hitter, Adolis Garcia's right-handed hitter, Marcus Semien right-handed hitter. They can sponge not playing Joc Pederson against the lefties, and he'll be dangerous for this team. I like this lineup a lot, but I'm a big Wyatt Langford believer, so I can understand if you're not. But if Wyatt Langford plays like he finished September, and the rest of this lineup plays as they usually do, with Adolis Garcia maybe returning to form from 2023, this is my favorite to win the AL West. And that's saying a lot because a lot of these teams have gotten better this offseason, and this division feels like it's wide open. But this type of move is the type of move that can really set your team apart. And I think the Rangers are trying to do that by getting a guy like Joc Pederson to come into this lineup and, provide that big boost.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Joc Pederson's awesome. He's very good at what he does. So there's not a whole lot to say about him. I mean, he's a left-handed platoon bat who absolutely mashes when you put him in the situations that he succeeds in. Mm-hmm. Now, you don't ever want to have him hit a lefty. You don't ever want to put him in the outfield. But if he's DHing against right-handed pitching,
what about at first base?
That could be interesting. But
it is interesting. I could tell you, it doesn't work.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but 151 WRC plus in 2024 in 132 games. I mean, that is very, very good stuff from Joc Pederson. So, gonna be interesting to see how he performs here and how they use him.
Mm-hmm.
As a platoon DH this last year, he put up 3 WAR.
Yeah.
That'll just tell you how good he is. You will never hear me say a bad word about Joc Pederson. One of the best nicknames in baseball, which I will not say because it's a family-friendly show sometimes. But what I will say is that I'm happy that he's stopped his tour of the NL West, because it was extremely annoying that he went from the Giants to the Diamondbacks, and I had to like actively root against him there. So happy you go to Texas, go be with Corey.
Yep.
We'll be happy over there for you. Okay. See you guys later. But that's it. Joc's amazing. I think he's going to fit this role really, really well.
Oh yeah.
And I think this team's really good because you guys are big Wyatt Langford fans. I'm big Evan Carter fan.
Yeah.
Me too.
So go from there. Do we have to talk about this next one? We have to.
Yeah.
A little bit.
I think so.
Briefly.
All right, so Andrew McCutchen, I'm just kidding. So right-handed pitcher Walker Buehler agreed to a 1-year deal for $21.05 million, basically the exact qualifying offer amount, with the Boston Red Sox, ending his time with the Dodgers. I hate it. Walker, I think he figured some stuff out really in the postseason. I think his four-seam fastball after his second Tommy John surgery really lost its shape, and it's lack for a better term, it's oomph behind it, really. Like, it used to be a fastball that finished really well. It kind of went away after the second Tommy John surgery. He's found a cutter, sinker, like slurve mix, sweeper, whatever you want to call it, in the postseason. I think he's going to do really well with that. I really wanted him to come back because I thought staying with the Dodgers there, with the full healthy offseason now, figuring that stuff out, it would have worked really well. But I think he's going to go be really good in Boston. I think, they needed some other arms that could be high profile behind the Garrett Crochets there. So I like this move for Boston. I hate it as a Dodger fan, and I hope that he comes back.
If I have to watch Kyle Hendricks in an Angels uniform, you can deal with Walker Buehler in a uniform.
No, they took him away from his father. Okay. Take him away from Kirsch.
Yeah, but like you mentioned, I mean, this is definitely gonna be interesting for the Boston. And if Walker Buehler does, now I'm not a huge believer in Walker Buehler this year, like you are. I think the stuff really did take a downturn, and I think that the postseason he did well in the postseason. I don't want to take that away from him, but it's like two starts in a row that he was good. So he might be great this year, but it's, to me, it's a lot of money to risk on him actually being good, because he had like a 5.5 ERA last year. But if he does hit, and he's even like his 2022 form, which was a 4.02 ERA with a little bit better metrics, then I mean, this rotation could be really good. You got Crochet, you got Tanner Houck, who was great last year. Brian Bayo is still super talented, and now you add Walker Buehler, who obviously if he comes back to form, you got like 3 or 4 guys in this rotation who are really good. And this division's kind of a little bit more open than it was now.
You got Giolito too.
Giolito, we'll see what happens with him. They're probably banking on either Giolito or Walker Buehler returning to form, and then the other one maybe being a 5-starter. So we'll see which one might be able to do it. But
figure it out. Okay, so the next one is that Andrew McCutchen signed a 1-year deal with the Pittsburgh Pirates. What is that for? Was it like $5 million or something?
It's cheap.
Yeah, $5 million.
Pirates.
It was worth $5 million. So, Kutch returning back to Pittsburgh.
This is the most impactful move Pittsburgh's made, and it's despicable. How could you waste Paul Skeens like this?
Yeah, he's McCutchen. But back, I mean, he was fine last year, I guess. He hit 20 homers, but had a .54 WAR. It doesn't really do much except bring a few people into the ballpark, which seems to be all they care about. So
he belongs in Pittsburgh is the thing. He needs to play in Pittsburgh. It's good that he's playing in Pittsburgh. It's just that he needs a good team around him. What's Pittsburgh doing?
Yeah,
I hate it.
So the next one we had happen was infielder Gleyber Torres agreed to a 1-year, $15 million deal with the Detroit Tigers. I think the plan right now is for him to be the starting second baseman, and they're going to move Colt Keith to first base and either give him the full runway there or do some sort of a platoon with Spencer Torkelson and Colt Keith.
Yep, that's the plan.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. They need more consistent offense in Detroit, and Gleyber Torres is at least consistent. He's going to be at least an above average hitter, and Colt Keith is definitely more suited to be a first baseman than anywhere else. So definitely think that works out for them.
All right, so the next move that we had was the Los Angeles Dodgers agreeing to a 3-year, $66 million deal to bring back Teoscar Hernandez. Obviously, I could talk a little bit more about this because I know about it. The plan here is to move Teoscar back to right field, which is his more comfortable position anyways. They got Conforto to play left at this point. Teoscar, I think we all thought he was going to go back. Like, it made too much sense. The buy-in there, the season he had, it was great. It's really, there's also a fourth year on here with a buyout with I think it's like $6.5 million buyout on like a $15 million deal or whatever. I'm assured he's probably going to get the buyout there. He probably shouldn't be playing the outfield in year 3 of this deal. You could maybe even make the argument at year 2, but I think he'll still be serviceable enough out there. The Dodgers have the pieces to where even if he's bad defensively, he plays offense for 6 innings, helps them score 10 runs, and then like, hey, James Outman or Andy Pajas, go play right field for 3 innings and be good defensively and give us nothing at the plate or whatever. I think he's a big return to this lineup. I think everything that he did last year can be repeated very well. You're going to look at this lineup and Teoscar Hernandez is going to be your 5 or 6 hitter. Like, it's crazy to say with the season he's coming off of, but that's the reality here. And I think that the Dodgers have been missing someone with the clubhouse presence and the leadership. And there's something to be said about culture. And that's not something they've had a lot of in the past. And I think he really brought that this year. He had the buy-in from the fans. So I love this deal. I think it makes perfect sense moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I'll say is that this deal does have some form of downside because you could end up with a Nick Castellanos situation where the swing and miss just takes over and kind of eliminates the power, and he doesn't really do that much else, especially the defense is awful. So this does have some downside, but I mean, like we said a million times on the show this year, it's the Dodgers, and they'll just eat the money if it doesn't work, and it doesn't matter. So might as well bring him back.
Yeah, there's no doubt. The Phillies have been having success with Castellanos still, for a guy who doesn't field much, and the hitting has fallen off a bit, but he can still play, decently well at the plate. Like, I think Teoscar's world's better right now than Nick, and I love Nick. So, this is they have both Conforto and Teoscar. It's just crazy, man. They're World Series defending champs. They've gone out and probably gotten better. I think this team's better than last year's team, and that's the team that won the championship. So wild.
Well, and what I will say is I think Teoscar in right field is a lot better defensively than he is in left field.
Mhm.
Funny enough, like Castellanos is really, really bad, but if you look at just Fangraphs' defensive value based for Castellanos in right field, it's negative 18.6, which it's whatever. But Teoscar's last time he was in right field was negative 4.7 and like 7.5 the year before that. Like, he's not, I think, anywhere near the bad like Nick Castellanos level defense out there, because I think he's still fast enough at least. But regardless. All right, so let's talk about one of the biggest moves of the offseason that kind of came out of nowhere as a shocker here, and that's with Corbin Burnes agreeing to a 6-year, $210 million contract with the Arizona Diamondbacks. There's also an opt-out after year 3. Am I not mistaken?
Yeah,
Year 2.
Okay.
After
year 2.
Yep.
There.
Yeah, this deal is very, very interesting. I think people need to give the Diamondbacks a little bit more credit on spending money in the past and spending money now. I mean, this is a team that signed Zach Greinke to a really big contract, very similar to this back in the mid 2010s. They signed, they signed Mad Bum to a big contract. Now that didn't work out, but they did it, and that was a big time free agent signing at the time. And they signed last year with Jordan Montgomery, who might get traded now, which will be interesting to kind of talk about in the future. But I mean, Corbin Burnes is, the last 5 years, I mean, ever since 2020, he's just been on a tear. I mean, he has put up a sub 3.40 ERA every single season, and that was the outlier season when he put up a 3.39 in 2023. Other than that, he's been a sub 3 ERA for the last 5 years. This guy is very, 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 very good. And I think that he did take there were a few caution signs about him in 2024 about some of the swing and miss. So that is something to keep an eye on. He did outperform his metrics this year, which the metrics have typically been in line with his performance. This year he outperformed them a little bit. So it's going to be interesting to see if that continues in Arizona, which, as Damian mentioned earlier, is a very, very good hitter's park. So going to be interesting there. Been very durable. So you feel as comfortable as you can signing a pitcher long term with his durability. I mean, this adds to a team that was in the World Series year before last. They missed the playoff. They tied for the last playoff spot last year and lost the tiebreaker.
Yeah.
And they now have a rotation of Zach Gallen, Corbin Burnes, Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt, and then Jordan Montgomery and Eduardo Rodriguez are still there. So I don't know. They might trade one of them, but I mean, this team could be very, very, very good this year.
Yeah, this was the best offense in baseball last year.
Yep.
And that we already talked about how I think they've maintained the capabilities of that offense despite losing one of their best offensive players in Christian Walker by replacing him with Josh Naylor for Slade Ciccone. And then this is how you don't feel like you missed anything if the Guardians fix Slade Ciccone is by signing Corbin Burnes. Everything Matt just said is absolutely factually true. Corbin Burnes is so good. I cannot believe that I was seeing these, we'll call them cautionary takes on Corbin Burnes, right? People were worried the cutter's not getting as many outs. And then I went and looked it up, and Damian and I looked it up, and we spent, 30 minutes after one of the shows early in the offseason. It's the same pitch, man. He was playing in Baltimore. Like he was trying to get ground balls in front of a good defense. Like, right field has 10, 15 feet further back to withstand fly balls. You can let the cutter leak over the middle of the plate a little bit more, I think. And, in Arizona, obviously it's a really good hitter's park. He probably has to tighten up and get more whiffs. This is a guy who's talented enough to adjust the way he's pitching to his ballpark and tailor everything right. Pretty clearly wanted to live in Arizona. I think it's where his family is living right now. And that's kind of where he's been doing spring training and stuff. And he likes it in Arizona, man. You can't fault the guy for that. Love this deal for the Diamondbacks though, man. What a great opportunity to bring a guy in like this. And he and Zach Gallen can sit at the top of the rotation. Let Zach Gallen walk in free agency after next year, which is kind of interesting because Gallen might get paid similarly to Burnes. And now, if things go poorly throughout the season, you could trade Zach Gallen at the deadline. So, overall, love this move. Think Corbin Burnes probably isn't bad. And I don't think things are going to go bad for the Diamondbacks. It's just they're chasing such a huge uphill battle in the Dodgers that this is kind of a team fighting for the wild card every year, and stuff that happened like what happened last year is going to keep happening to them. But, they're making the right moves, and you got to credit the owner for that. You got to credit the front office for that. This is a good move. Bottom line for the Diamondbacks, and it's a good move for Corbin Burnes. He goes where he wants to go, and opt out of year 2 if it's not working. He can just step aside and go somewhere else.
Well, yeah, he wanted to be more on the West Coast. There was rumors that he had offers from Boston, that he had probably even a bigger offer from Toronto.
Nobody wants to take Toronto's money.
But like David said, he wanted to be in Arizona, and what was something that wasn't really reported until after this deal was agreed to or signed there is that is where his family is, and his wife just had twins.
Yeah.
And they live in Arizona.
Yep.
Like, it makes absolute sense that like he wants to go to Arizona. And so it makes a bunch of sense there. He wanted to be on the West Coast. It gives him the option after the year 2. It's going to be incredibly interesting if they lose Gallen and then Burnes opts out after year 2. Because that's going to be very, very interesting, because then you only have, I think, like Erod and like Ryan Nelson, because Merrill Kelly will probably be gone after another couple years. Montgomery's going to be gone.
Pfaadt, maybe.
Pfaadt too, yeah.
But
it makes it a lot really, really interesting. For this year, I think Arizona is they're in a good spot. I think they were really hampered in the first half by Corbin Carroll's just absolute slow, ice cold start. Once he picked it back up, this looked like the Arizona team that made the World Series the year before.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised to see them go on another run. I know they lost Christian Walker, and that's a big loss, but getting Josh Naylor is a fine replacement piece for that too. So I think like it for Arizona. I hate that I have to keep seeing Corbin Burnes more and more after what he did to me, but hey. Anyways, all right. So I guess the real quick pivot is because it is the Burnes replacement. We might as well just talk about this one instead, jumping ahead a little bit. But that is that Charlie Morton signed a 1-year, $15 million deal to go to the Baltimore Orioles. I was a little shocked that he went to Baltimore there. I thought he would probably retire or he would just stay with the Braves, but we know that the Braves usually sign him early in the offseason. That didn't happen, so that made me think he was going to retire or go to like Tampa Bay again or something. But Matt, what'd you think?
I mean, that's exactly what I was thinking. Was that when the Braves didn't bring him back immediately, they declined his option. I think he had an option that they declined. They didn't resign him. You just kind of knew that he wasn't going to come back unless he just came back on like a minor league deal or something. I think his stuff has fallen off the last couple of years. I think it's just kind of the stuff hadn't really fallen off that much on the high end, but the consistency's really fallen off with him. Lots of wildness. He's not repeating his mechanics very well anymore, but he still has it in there. I mean, he still has his games where he puts up like 7 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts. So, I think the Orioles see that and can say they think they can tap back into that, and he might have one more good year in him. And he wasn't bad for the Braves last year. He had like a 4.20 ERA or something. He was just inconsistent, frustrating to watch at times with the walks. Um, I'm sure that Charlie Morton was frustrated pitching at times just because he's a better pitcher than I think in his career he's been a better pitcher than that, especially when it comes to control. Um, so that was definitely I think that was awesome what he did with the Braves over the last 3 or 4 years, and I hope he does well with the Orioles. I was a little surprised he didn't go to Tampa, just because he probably couldn't have gotten 15 million, but his family's in Tampa, and he had kind of said all along that he was going to play for the Braves or the Rays or he was going to retire. So I was a little bit surprised they didn't do that, but gets to play for a contender, a chance to win another ring. It would be his third if he does. So good for Charlie Morton and the Orioles that needed pitching, and they added somebody to help out.
Yeah, the vision I have of Charlie Morton is him getting the ball off his ankle, breaking his ankle, and then keeping pitching for the rest of the inning.
Striking out Altuve on the next
Yeah.
pitch.
On a broken leg. But this is a guy I really like when how pitching has kind of there. Usually, you're expecting an age curve where there's a big drop off, and a bunch of guys. Zach Greinke is one we talked about already in this episode. Charlie Morton's another one. Some of these guys just kind of never stop being decent. And Morton has managed that for a really long time, and that's really cool. I hope he keeps it up. I worry Father Time's undefeated. I worry that the cliff is coming for Charlie Morton, and I worry that Baltimore has definitely not done enough. We didn't really talk about it. We skipped over it. Tomiyuki Sugano also signed with Baltimore, probably to start. He's the crafty lefty, doesn't throw very hard, coming over from Japan. Righty. Yeah, crafty righty. Doesn't throw very hard. Coming over from Japan, 35 years old. This is they're in a tough spot, is Baltimore. And Elias just isn't spending money. The new ownership is giving him the green light, and they just have not put forth the cash commitments that you need to turn this roster from a good roster, which I think it's a good roster, to a World Series contending roster. And they haven't replaced Anthony Santander yet. So they're looking probably to go with a pre-arb guy who's very young, one of those various prospects. I don't know about this plan, man. The Yankees have gotten better. Even with losing Soto, I think the Yankees have gotten better, and that was already a close race between the two teams last year. So
yeah, I think the Red Sox have at least gotten better too.
the Red Sox too. Yep.
Yeah, they got way better. So definitely agree there. But and as you mentioned, the Orioles, the spending money thing, they've got to be cooking something up, right? I mean, they've got this new ownership, like, and it might be signing guys to extensions too, which is something they really need to do. But they've got to be cooking something up, right? I mean, there's no way that they're just going to sit back, stand pat, go into the season if it's true that the Rubensteins are wanting to spend money.
I think the Rubensteins have given the ability to spend money. I think Mike Elias is not wanting to spend money very wildly.
Yeah.
Wants
to keep that flexibility.
Well, where he came from Houston. Mm-hmm. What is their thing? Their key was draft really well, bring up a bunch of young guys at one time, sign that core, and then you're good, and then supplement every once in a while, right? I think he's trying to get that young core up and established right now with Westberg, with Mayo, with Holiday. You already have Gunner and Adley up there doing it. Now you're going to have your glut of outfielders this year with Kauser and Kerstad and them getting their run. You've supplemented a little bit by signing Tyler O'Neill, which can help kind of replace Santander a little bit here. You know, you got to figure out what you're doing with Mountcastle and O'Hearn at first, but this is the Houston light build, right? This is what Houston did before they turned into Houston. And I think a lot of people just don't kind of understand that fully yet, because I think what Mike Elias is doing is like, we're not going to overspend to get guys in here right now, because our long-term plan is going to be to sign Gunner, sign Adley, and those are going to be very healthy extensions. And then at that point, when you're set up and all of those young guys are established, you can figure out what do we really need long-term. But if you sign, let's say, an Alex Bregman right now, you don't know what Westberg or Mayo is going to be, and you kind of block them, or Holiday, right? I'm not saying that that's what they need. I'm just saying an aspect of they're in this wait and see type of period for the next couple of years where they're good enough to compete, but I don't think they're really at the spot to go and win yet.
Like the obvious answer to your conundrum there, though, is you take Kobe Mayo. If you signed Alex Bregman, for example, it's not a rumor or anything. If you signed Alex Bregman, you take Kobe Mayo, you trade him for a starting pitcher. That's the way to do it.
I will say there's still been some rumblings that they could make a starting pitcher trade this year.
They should.
One from San Diego.
That would make sense.
Just
that would make sense too
for that. All right, so real quick, this one's not going to be a hard hitter, but I want to give David his little like 20 seconds of rant period here. The Cubs made a deal to acquire Vidal Brujan from the Marlins for Matt Mervis, and then also within that, they have signed Caleb Thielbar, left-handed reliever, to a 1-year, $2.75 million deal.
Right.
And we lost David.
We lost. I think it was me.
I'm back. Yeah, he's
back.
Look.
You lost connection right when I said that. That's how mad you were.
I thought it was the joke of I just don't have words.
Threw the computer out the window.
Yeah.
No, I did a tweet that was a little reactionary, a little hot headed, and we got some flame for it. But look,
yeah.
Here's the deal: is that the Cubs have traded off Cody Bellinger and not done anything since. And I don't think either of these moves can count as doing anything. Thielbar might give you some good innings, but he wasn't good last year. He's 38 years old. I'm not expecting guys who are 38 to magically turn it around and become good pitchers. It's just a matter of being aggressive in the right ways. And it seems like the Cubs are on a budget that's stricter than any of us know about, where that Cody Bellinger stuff might've been like, you want to make one more bullpen signing and you needed the Cody Bellinger money to be able to do that. And if that's the case, and we're turning to Caleb Thielbar as opposed to a couple more million for an Andrew Chafin, somebody who's pretty reliable. And, I don't like this. I don't like the Brujan thing. They've got like 4 guys who already do that already on the 40 man. I won't list them off, but it feels very useless. So
they should have 5, but
yeah, but the other 4 guys will all stay healthy.
I don't think Thielbar's bad. I think for $2.75 million, he had a bad year, but if you look at his 4 or 5 years prior to that, he was very good. And I don't think Thielbar is stopping them from signing a different reliever. So that's just my 2 cents.
I have no comment on this whole topic.
There you go. All right, because the Nationals, we'll move on to our next one. The Nationals already acquired Nate Lowe. So what did they need to do? They needed to go sign another first baseman.
Yeah.
So they signed Josh Bell to a 1-year, $6 million deal.
This made 0 sense to me. Josh Bell's not even very good in general. I mean, he's really should be DHing. He's one of the worst defensive
he
first
probably
basemen.
is now.
Yeah, he's got to be. So do they still have Joey Meneses?
Yeah,
I think so. I'll check her.
Why not? If you're a rebuilding team, why spend money on Josh Bell if you have Joey Meneses who can just DH for you while you're rebuilding, and maybe one of your young guys who you need to find a spot for in the lineup can come up and actually DH, or you can have your catcher that's not very good at catching DH some or something. Like I don't think.
No, Meneses is now on the Mets.
Oh,
Oh,
well,
there you
there you go. But either way, I mean, I won't ever criticize teams for spending money on a 1 year deal. I mean, and I don't think it limits the Nationals from their long term things. And maybe they think Josh Bell succeeded there a few years ago, and they could flip him at the deadline for something. It's
Again,
very possible, but I mean, it just doesn't make much sense. I don't see the fit. But it's a 1 year, $6 million deal, so it doesn't have that much downside.
This is really fun. Josh Bell's been moved at the deadline 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
He'll get moved again. I'm 100% confident in that. I don't get it. I've never been in love with the Josh Bell hitter. He's just okay. His best years were with the Nationals, so maybe there's that. But yeah, I'm super apathetic to this move. I think it's not the type. I wanted the Nats to sign Pete Alonso, is what I wanted, but I don't get what I want.
Yeah, I don't think it's in the grand scheme. I don't think it's bad. If you think that you're a team that is not competitive, which the Nats aren't going to be competitive this year, they're probably a year or two away. You sign a veteran to a 1 year deal for a DH who can be good for a bunch of those young guys who's had success there before. Move him at the deadline, and you lose nothing but maybe like $4 million. Like, really, I don't. At the end of the day, that's not that. And Bell's had success there before, so I think it makes a ton of sense for him to want to go there on a really cheap deal too. So, all right. So the next one we had, which was on Friday, which is the post or the date where Hyeseong Kim had to sign, the Korean infielder. We really hadn't heard much about his entire free agency coming into it. And then Friday was like the date at 5 p.m. Eastern is when he had to sign by. And then when there were some rumors Friday morning that he had a deal from the Angels for 5 years, $28 million, the Padres, and then that he had agreed to a 3-year, $12.5 million deal with the Dodgers. It was kind of in limbo for a while. A bunch of people weren't really sure if that was true because it was all from Korean sites, which translations to English aren't very great if you're using much stuff out of here, but it ended up being true. 3-year, $12.5 million deal. There's also a club option on the back end for 2 years. So it has to be picked up together after year 3 for 28 and 29, which would make it a 5-year, I think $22 million deal. I think it's an extra $10 million there anyways. We'll talk about what the whole ramifications are for it later. But if you don't know Hyeseong Kim enough, I understand. I did some more research, so if you guys don't have anything on him, much rather I could tell you more about what to expect from him moving forward.
I know he's got like a 770 OPS in Korea and isn't much of a power hitter, but is a fast guy. And honestly, if there's something that the Dodgers need in that lineup, it's more like contact and speed and defense. They got the power covered. That team is going to be hit so many home runs. That guy at least can go there, play defense, and get on base.
Yeah,
steal some bases. That's good with me.
I kind of think of him as like Tommy Edman light in some ways.
So his comparisons. So his full-time seasons, he's had about an 800 OPS. Like in his 4 full-time seasons when he's really played enough, because he didn't get full-time run until Hyeseong Kim came over. From there, they were on the same team. I know Hyeseong to Hyeseong, right? Anyways, his comparisons at the end of the day are either a Andres Jimenez or a Nico Horner. That's it. Good defensive infielder, not going to hit for much power. Going to be a good average-ish hitter. With maybe a lower OPS because he doesn't slug enough. Yeah. That's kind of where you're looking at there. So,
can't believe you didn't say Nick Madrigal with speed.
Well, I'm just. I'm saying what the Korean people have given me. Okay.
He's not going to be Nico Horner and or Andres Jimenez, in my opinion. I don't think so either.
I don't think he's got the offensive. This year. He's not going to be this year.
Yeah.
I think there's enough there eventually.
He's hit 30. He's hit 37 home runs in 950 games in Korea.
Yeah, so have you seen how many homers that Andres
Jimenez has hit like
1 year? He like 15, or even Nico Horner has like single-digit homers outside of like 1 year too. Like we're not talking crazy here.
That's also Korea versus the Major League Baseball too.
Yeah, but what we're talking about is like a 700 OPS guys. Like we're not
Okay.
Well,
talking
I'm
crazy.
thinking Luis Arias was my kind of idea. Maybe Bryce Terang is a good comparison for him. What Bryce Terang was last
Yeah.
year, 80, 90 WRC plus, really good defense, a lot of stolen bases.
That would be the
I think
hope. Yeah.
that's what I think you're going to be looking for here.
Terrain has a little bit more strikeout, but it could be right around there.
You're right. Yeah.
But let's talk about the next move in conjunction with that move, and that happened today, and that was with the Dodgers trading second baseman Gavin Lux to the Cincinnati Reds for outfield prospect Mike Sirota. Is that how you say it? Sirota and a competitive balance pick, which is 37 right now. But after Santander signs, it's going to basically be pick 41. So Dodgers will have pick 40 and 41 at the same time. But yeah, the Reds' plan is to move Gavin Lux into like a super utility role, which if they've watched Gavin Lux at all, you should not put him in a super utility role. I think he's a fine player. I think there's even a little bit more in there because once he came the second half, once he kind of recovered from his ACL stuff there, he had a really good season, like a 135 WRC plus. I don't think that's the level for him, but he's a pure second baseman. He can't throw the ball from shortstop or third base. He can't play the outfield, even though he's really fast because he can't read the fly ball good enough from out there. But I think he's a very manageable second baseman. He could be a good second base option on a good team, but not a super utility. And I don't understand the fit for the Reds there because they already have a ton of infielders. You didn't need Gavin Lux, and you traded a good prospect who the Dodgers drafted before he went to high school or before he went to college in the 16th round. He was a third round pick from this last year. He had some even first round upside before he struggled. And you also gave up a draft pick.
Yeah, this is a terrible move by the Reds. I do not like this in one bit, unless you're planning to finally make that trade of a couple of your infielders for starting pitching.
Yeah, I want to mention too to go along with that. There's maybe some talk that Matt McClain might play outfield to keep him healthier. He could play center field. He's got the speed for it, and he's played there in the minor leagues. So, you could bring in Gavin Lux, who has a lot of upside. I think people kind of forget the level of prospect he was, and it's not like he's been just totally unusable at the big league level. He hadn't been great, but he's been at least okay. He's dealt with a lot of injuries. It's definitely a change of scenery guy. And now talking about giving up a draft pick, I mean, it's hard to say. It really just depends because Gavin Lux has the talent to be like the best hitter in this lineup, in my opinion. He's got the talent level. He just hasn't put it together. So if he comes in next year, he puts up an 850 OPS, which is not out of the entire realm of possibility, especially in Great American Ballpark.
That's true.
Then you could be sitting here looking at this trade as, trading away a guy who had a little bit of draft hype but didn't perform in a pretty late draft pick for somebody who ends up being really, really good. So I definitely think it's got upside for the Reds. Obviously the Dodgers, Gavin Lux, it just wasn't working there. So being able to get a draft pick and a pretty solid prospect for him, it was fantastic work for the Dodgers in this trade. So honestly, I look at it a little bit of as a win-win, assuming that they don't botch the middle infield situation and they either, as David mentioned, trade away a couple middle infielders to bring in a pitcher that helps them, or put Matt McClain in the outfield to clear up that middle infield spot, which would help them too because they need outfielders. And you could put Friedel in a corner and in left field or something, and then you'd be in good shape. So definitely something to look for here going forward to see how they manage that. But I think this trade could work on either side.
Yeah, the only part I'm worried about there is if you do move McClain to center field, like you have a bunch of corner outfield options as it is too. So like trying to move Friedel over to that, because Spencer Steer's playing the outfield. You have Jake Fraley, who's been really good. You have TJ Friedel now too, and I think they even have a couple other outfield prospects, if I'm not mistaken. Will Benson, yeah, he's another one who's got some real playing time, has been pretty good there. So I worry about that, but like I do think Lux is a good player. I think he can fit a role if they use him correctly. I'm just worried that if the plan is super utility there, that's not going to work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got one more note on this that I read in an article. It's very interesting that I haven't ever thought about, and it's kind of a negative to the Reds, honestly. One of the things that I guess their GM Crawl, is that their GM?
I think so.
Yeah, they did a press conference with him, and he said that the draft pick saved them money because that's a pretty high draft pick. It's probably $1.5 million, and it's a comp pick, so it would just add to your draft pool. So that's $1.5 million they can now use in the big league club this year. And apparently their books are really tight right now, which you can take that for what it's worth. I mean, that's what they say. So
Then why'd you
it's a negative on the Reds, but saving the $1.5 million apparently was a big deal here. So
why'd you give Nick Martinez a qualifying offer?
I mean, that's what we talked about then. To say if this costs the Reds the ability to make moves, it's really stupid.
Right.
Now, if the Reds are still like they're just going to spend more money this year, then it's fine. But if it's going to limit you, you're being dumb. So
Right.
that really is a big thing.
Yeah, if you're worried about $1.5 million in MLB
Yeah.
baseball, then there's
Yep.
something wrong with
Absolutely.
your,
I mean, I agree. I mean,
Yep.
your process there. But
yeah.
It's not good.
all right, so actually we only have one more deal to hit on, so I think we've done pretty well with our time here. The last deal, which was two more deals. Sorry, two more deals. Michael Lorenzen agreed to a 1-year, $7 million deal to go back to the Kansas City Royals. He's going to be some sort of a swing guy. Pitch sometimes out of the bullpens, pitch sometimes as a starter there. I think he did pretty decent there for when he got traded over there at the deadline, but it's a good solid piece for the Royals rotation, bringing back a lot of pieces that were good for them last year.
Yeah, I think Michael Lorenzen in 2024 is entirely fool's gold. He had a 5 FIP and a 5 xFIP. All of the metrics were terrible, but he had a 3.31 ERA on the season. Had a 157 post trade to Kansas City. Now he's also not getting paid very much. So if you look at him as a swing guy, making $6 million, who could put up a mid-4s ERA, then you really like this still. And that's kind of what I'm looking at. Is I think it's fine because it's not like you're paying him a huge amount of money or giving him 3 or 4 years that'll limit you in the future. This is just a guy that it's kind of a depth signing, a 5/swing man starter. He's still got pretty good stuff, throws pretty hard, so you never know. He might have a good year. I'm not a huge fan of Michael Lorenzen's ability. I don't mind him personally, but I think that it's a totally fine signing for the Royals, who needed some pitching depth.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, what I think it is they traded Brady Singer and they're moving Bubic to the starting rotation, and Bubic pitched 30 innings last year, so they need some extra help to help cover the additional innings from Bubic's ramp up. I don't think he's going to throw 170 innings or whatever, close to that. So Lorenzen just gives him coverage. I think that's kind of what it's at. But the last deal that we have to talk about is Chris Martin agreeing to a deal with the Texas Rangers. I'm not sure. I'm going to try and figure out if I could see the terms.
I don't know that they've been released yet, but
It's gonna be a 1-year deal.
Yeah, it's a 1-year deal. We know that. We don't know the money, but I like this deal for Texas. I mean, Chris Martin's very good. He was excellent. He's been one of the better relievers here since the 2022 season when he signed with the Cubs, got traded to the Dodgers midseason. He was excellent for the Dodgers down the stretch that year. 2023, he had a 1.05 ERA on the season in 51 innings. I mean, he still throws pretty hard. Now his velocity did dip just a little bit this year, but he's still throwing averaging 95 on the fastball. That'll play. The walk rate, 0.6 walks per 9 and over 10 strikeouts per 9 in 2024 was excellent. The advanced numbers were all fantastic. His ERA 3.45 was well above what his expected numbers showed, which means that he should, if he can repeat his performance from last year, he should be better than he was last year. So, he is 39 years old. That's really the big downside to him is relievers are fickle. They fall off a cliff in a hurry when they fall off a cliff. And Chris Martin this might be the year he does it, but I mean, this is somebody who definitely should have been had conversations with like everybody.
Yeah. I mean, a career 3% walk rate for Chris Martin. I love a guy who refuses to walk batters, especially in a reliever. That's awesome. I love Chris Martin. Good for him. He might close for Texas. The Fangraphs has listed him as the closer. Texas had Kirby Yates last year be their kind of closer that stepped in. He might be the closer for Texas next year. And that's pretty interesting because Jose Leclerc's a free agent. Yates is a free agent right now. So this is kind of the first move. I expect Texas to make at least one more move in the bullpen. That bullpen still might be their biggest weak spot. But yeah, this is a good one. Love Chris Martin.
Yeah, I don't see the terms being listed anywhere. I'm trying to do them. So, but I think it's a good deal. I mean, they need some help there. I think Martin is still a good level reliever. I think he does really well in the postseason as well. So, outside of that one year, sorry, Matt. But yeah, I think that's everything that we have to talk about. I think we really wrapped this up a lot quicker than I thought we would. Yeah, I'm trying to look at this. We got a few more moves to still happen here. There's still Jack Flaherty, Alex Bregman are still major free agents. Tanner Scott is still out there as well. Anthony Santander. So we'll see as those continue to kind of percolate here. I would be shocked if we don't have something on those guys in the next few weeks.
Yeah, and I want to say that there's one team that is a contender that has not signed a single big league free agent, and it's the Braves, who are supposed to have a lot of money to spend. So I don't know what the hell they're doing. Alex Anthopoulos has just been in hibernation, apparently. But that's one to kind of keep an eye on. One of those guys. I've heard some rumors that they're close to something, so I definitely look at that.
They are close to acquiring a cheeseburger and a melatonin.
If Tanner Scott means a cheeseburger and a melatonin, then
I don't think they're close to signing Tanner Scott.
He's rumored to be going for $20 million a year.
The Braves have $20 million to spend. They don't have anyone else to spend it on, so
they should spend it on Jack Flaherty.
I would not be opposed to that, or
that'd be better for
or trade for Dylan Cease.
You could do that.
There's so much.
Just don't give up anybody good to San Diego.
We know they won't be good after San Diego gets their hands on them.
That's true.
Especially the fact that the Braves' top prospect is a catcher, and San Diego typically is a black hole for catchers.
They need a catcher. San Diego doesn't have a catcher.
They really do
need a catcher.
They do.
Because they can't develop them.
The ghost of Yasmani Grandal shall return pretty soon. But
oh boy.
Anyways, while we ramble on here too much, we hope you guys enjoyed this. Like we said, 2025 is going to be a year of change for the Batflip podcast. You can already see right here, our podcast looks a bunch different from that it has before. Hopefully we sound different than we have before. Go follow all of our social media pages. We're making a real push to grow there this year. TikTok, we need to get to enough viewers on TikTok so we can go live over there as well. Follow us on X because we will be posting more over there about moves. You can see all the time. We've already posted some stuff today that we don't have time to talk about here on the podcast. We're all a lot more active on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Anyways, our ats are below our names. Go follow us there. Like, comment, subscribe on this video. Let us know what you think of any of these moves. And like I said, we're going to make a big push this year to be better for you guys and bring you guys more content, aka as you already saw with the season previews. So hope you guys enjoy it all. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode, and we will catch you guys back here on the next episode.